continuing a discussion of what some people might think of as stupid, irrational Hinduism. I find myself in the ironic position of defending Hinduism against charges of being stupid and irrational when I myself do not exactly subscribe to the whole concept of Hinduism or any ism of this world, being interested myself in Sanatana Dharma, the eternal occupation, spiritual occupation of the soul, the Atma, and its representation or reification as Vedic culture. But because what is nowadays called Hinduism is strongly based on the Vedic knowledge and the Puranic knowledge, and because Sanatana Dharma is absolutely based on Vedic knowledge and Puranic knowledge, therefore the roots are the same, and there's much in common. Anyway, that's another whole big discussion in itself. Our adversary, pondering as deeply as she can, which isn't very deep, has remarked about Christianity and Islam spreading widely. Why were the Hindu gods and goddesses unable to stop them? Well, for a start, the gods and goddesses don't think of themselves as being Hindu. They are because we are on a tiny little planet, in a tiny little spectrum of time, and we don't know what's going on in the big universe beyond us. We have very little knowledge of it. The Vedas and Puranas give us some information. The word Hindu is a relatively modern term. So the gods and goddesses in the upper worlds, they don't think of themselves as Hindus, but because we on this little planet, in this little window of time, identify the gods and goddesses who are worshipped by a certain group of people as being Hindu gods. So that term comes. Now, to understand this, first of all, the gods and goddesses were not, why would they want to stop them? There's a reason for everything. One thing to understand, time works in a circular manner, not a linear manner. It appears to us to work in a linear manner, just like if we are on a circle, say we're on the perimeter of a circle, and the radius of the circle is 100 kilometers, just theoretically speaking, and we're walking on the perimeter of that circle. It will seem to us like a straight line because it's so big. So in the same way, time is circular over huge spans of time. But because we're just in a little tiny part of that time, it appears to us to be linear. And by tiny part of time, I'm talking about, for instance, the 2,000 years that Christianity has been going on. It's only a tiny part of time. In the Vedas, Puranas, the time is given huge, huge spans. Now, within one day of Brahma, as described in Bhagavad Gita, Sahasra Yoga Paryantam Aharyad Brahmano Viduhu. One day of Brahma, the first created being in this universe, one day of Brahma is equal to 1,000 yugas. There is Satya Yoga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga, the yuga in which we presently live. Yuga means age, so there are 4 ages. Kali Yuga has a length of 432,000 years, of which we are presently only about 5,000 years into. Dwapara Yuga is twice as long as that, Treta Yuga is 3 times as long as that, and Satya Yuga is 4 times as long as that. So these together, taken together, constitute one Mahayuga. That's 4,320,000 years times 10 times 10 equals the extent of Brahma's day. And that is the extent of his night also. So it's 2 times 10 times 4,320,000 equals a day and a night of Brahma, and 1,000 of such kalpas are called a Mahakalpa, which makes 1 day of Brahma. And Brahma lives 100, that's 1 day, and he lives 100 years by his calculation. So we're talking about long understanding of time. And it's circular, because Satya Yuga is the age of truth. In Treta Yuga, dharma, which is solidly strong in Satya Yuga, becomes less in Treta Yuga by 1 quarter, and then by another quarter in Dwapara Yuga, the 3rd Yuga, and in the 4th Yuga, Kali Yuga, which we're presently in, dharma, or the clear understanding of what is right and what is wrong, becomes completely mixed up. And therefore, in Kali Yuga, ignorance prevails. Tamoguna, this is technically called in Bhagavad Gita. In Bhagavad Gita, we have the description. Adharmam dharmam iti ya manyase tamasavrita sarvatan viparitangs cha buddhi sa partha tamasi. Someone who is overcome by the mentality of ignorance takes that which is not actually dharma, that which is not actually religion, that which is not actually right, to be dharma, and vice versa. And everything they get back to front, upside down, inside out, everything opposite of what should be. So that is the condition in the prominent position in Kali Yuga. That's why in the name of religion, adharma, so much adharma goes on in the name of religion. In Hinduism also. That's again why I'm not so very keen on this term Hinduism. There are so many misunderstandings. One major misunderstanding in the field of religion is to think, and this is in the Abrahamic religions, is to think that we're born once and we die and then it's all over. And then we either go to heaven or we go to hell. But reincarnation, or the understanding that we are recycled also, where we get body after body after body, this is implicit in the Puranic worldview or the Vedic worldview, although some deny that reincarnation is not there in the Vedas, which is nonsense. But the understanding that God gives us chance after chance after chance, and God is not so harsh that if we happen to get born in the wrong country and we're not a Christian or we're not a Muslim, and then we go to hell forever. God's not so harsh. God is kinder, and He gives us chance after chance, and that's why there's reincarnation. And actually you say that Hinduism is not spread all over the world, but the understanding of reincarnation, which is at the basis of Hinduism, which is the basis, and which is anathema in the Christian or Muslim worldview, that's actually millions of people all over the world are beginning to accept this, because there's so much prima facie evidence for it. Scientific evidence exactly is very difficult to give, just as exactly to give scientific evidence beyond any shadow of doubt about the existence or the phenomenon of biological evolution. But from the perceived evidence, it is presumed that biological evolution is a fact. So from the evidence that is there, the theory that fits, and just go and look on YouTube and see. There's tons and tons of stuff which strongly suggests to someone who's not stupid, someone who is sensible and rational and open-minded will accept the evidence for reincarnation. So in this way we can say what could be called Hindu concepts, but actually it's just a fact, are becoming accepted all over the world. And along with reincarnation goes the acceptance of the phenomenon of karma, getting the results of karma. Yoga is becoming more and more widespread all over the world, although some fanatical Christians don't want people to practice yoga because of its spiritual overtones. They don't want people to get into that. And the same with Islam. In many hard-line Islamists don't want yoga to be practiced because even though the huge majority of people all over the world, in India also, practice yoga for physical health and maybe for mental tranquility also, they're very afraid of this because they know it has its spiritual basis. And in fact, yoga in the Western world has been largely de-Indianized, and they give English names to all the asanas and this and that. So, but it's a fact that it's going out there, and meditation, yoga meditation or Buddhist meditation has become mainstream in the Western world. It's not part of Christianity. It comes from Hinduism. You can say it comes from Buddhism, but then Buddhism comes from Hinduism. And if you say that, so why would the gods not stop this spreading, Christianity and Islam? Because it's the time for it. It's a time in universal history, especially on this Earth planet, where ignorance, irreligion in the name of religion, is supposed to spread widely because people are at that level of consciousness where they can only start to take to religion in a very base form. Now, I'm not saying that everyone who is into Islam and Christianity is at a base level, but in general, it's based on the ignorance of thinking that there's only one life and God sends you to hell forever if you don't follow our path exactly. Actually, that was a question which I had in my childhood, being raised as a Roman Catholic, because we were told you have to be a Roman Catholic. If you're Protestant, you go to hell. But I knew that on the other side of the road, the Protestant school, they say you have to be a Protestant. Otherwise you go to hell. If you're a Roman Catholic, you go to hell. And at that time there was hardly any consciousness of Islam at all. But the idea is only Catholics can go to heaven. So, but exactly what are all the arguments? How can I know as a child what are all the pros and cons of Catholicism versus Protestantism? And it's really hard to tell. And if you throw Islam into the mix also, they say that you have to be a Muslim, otherwise you go to hell forever. Of course, they say people of the book, I don't know what exactly happens to them, but they're not as bad as kafirs like me. And then the Shias hate Sunnis and vice versa. And the whole idea is that you have to be in a particular sect, otherwise you go to hell forever. And it's very difficult to understand with your intelligence, being sensible and rational, how to choose and know which is the right one. And it's like Russian roulette. You might get it right and you might get it wrong, and it seems you're more likely numerically to get it wrong and go to hell forever. So this irrational, illogical kind of understanding is also one reason why people all over the world are gravitating toward a more sensible, rational understanding, philosophical understanding of religion. And apart from, but now is the time when the influence of tamoguna, the mode of darkness or ignorance, is very strong, and it's a time for that. People, according to their karma, are born in the Kali Yuga, and they tend to torture each other and give suffering to each other. But those who are fortunate can take to the Sankirtan movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and chant Hare Krishna and be delivered from all of this. But if we say, you see, Christianity and Islam is so widespread, Hinduism is less widespread, again, it's only on this tiny little planet. All over the universe, Vedic culture is prominent. There's life on other planets. We might not be able to see it. Okay, and then I'm taking the questions out of order. I'm going to number 19 because the questions are not so well ordered. They're making a little bit of a logical continuum here. So supposedly it's supposed to be a question, but it's more like a challenge. How can a loving, merciful, justice God, should be just God, how can a loving, merciful, just God be so unjust by taking all his avatars or births only in India? Why is there not a single avatar born in Russia, Japan, US, Europe, except India? Well, again, we have to understand this from the... there's more to this question. Why all Indian God stories rotates? I'm going to translate the poor English into actual English. Why do all the Indian God stories take place only in India? It means that all the bad or evil was happening only on this piece of land or during that time, and there was no civilization or people except living in India. Any sensible, logical person will deny this. Well, in response to that, I would say that any sensible, logical person will not rush to superficial conclusions. Actually, much of the narrations within the Vedic literatures and Puranas, they're not in India, they are in other planets of the universe also. But at the same time, we find, if you really, really want to go into this deeply and not be superficial, which unfortunately the person who's asking these questions seems to be very superficial, but if you want to come to a deeper understanding, study the literature. You'll find in the 5th of the 12 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is discussion of why this Bharata Varsha, which is now known as India, why it is very special. It's known the earth in the Puranas is called Saptadvip. That means there are 7 islands. So it's known that this Bharata Varsha is not the only, this area known as Bharata is not the only one. But this area is very special because Karmana Daiva Netrena Jantur Deho Papate, under the guidance of the Supreme Lord and the demigods, living beings take birth and they are put in particular places according to their karmic fruits, their mentality, their desires, and therefore we find that people who are born in different countries tend to have different mentalities. Now, according to a socio-psychological perspective, that could be attributed to culture, but there's more to it than that. why do certain souls get placed in certain bodies? And I don't know what the answer to that could be, because that was one of my questions, again, when I was in my early teens. Why, if Christianity is the real thing, why are some people born in Christian countries and they're more likely to go to heaven, and some are born in non-Christian countries, and then according to Christian dogma, you're more likely to, you're going to go to hell? Why is it like that? Well, the Vedic understanding is that we are placed in certain situations according to our karma, what we deserve, what we aspire for. And generally, people who are more pious, who are ready to accept the Vedic culture, they get put together in India. At the present time, people who are suitable for that kind of karma can be born in America. People who are suitable for or deserve that kind of karma can be born in Afghanistan. So it's not just by chance that God is playing dice with the universe, as Einstein didn't believe, but it's all going on in a very systematic, scientific, ordered way. And those who are most pious, they can take to the Vedic culture, and then they can become more purified. But it's not that everyone who is born in India is very pious. After all, karma is extremely complex, because at every moment we're thinking different things and doing different things and saying different things and neglecting to do certain things. In some cases, crimes of omission, things that we should do but we don't do. So it's extremely complex, and it's all ordered how everyone is put together. Sometimes a child is born to the parents just to give pain to the parents, or sometimes the child is born to certain parents to receive pain from them, because in a previous life they may have been the parent of the child who is now their parent, and they tortured the child, and now the parent will torture them. And so it's very, very complex. And where does it all begin? It's impossible to trace out, but God knows everything. So India is the place where pious souls are put so that they can follow the Vedic culture for their purification. And that is why the Supreme Lord comes here, where it's suitable. Just like now at the present time, we find many of the top brains in, for instance, in information technology, or in many areas of science and technology, they gravitate toward America, because there's certain facilities and the situation there is suitable for expressing their work, for continuing their work. So in India, the avatars come where they'll be appreciated, and their coming will be more beneficial. People can take more advantage. In the Middle East, Lord Jesus came, and he was crucified by the people. They wanted to kill him. Lord Jesus was a monumental figure in terms of religion and saintliness in that part of the world. But actually in India, there have been so many sants and rishis and yogis and sadhus whose level of spiritual consciousness is at least commensurate with that of Lord Jesus. But no one wanted to kill them until the religion of peace came. They were respected, they were worshipped as being great personalities. So when the Supreme Lord and when the demigods come to this earth, they mostly come in India, and that's recorded in the Vedic literature, which is mostly propagated in India. There's a reason for it. It's not just stupid. Any sensible, logical person will deny this, says Jiya, who thinks she's sensible and logical. Maybe not as sensible and logical as she thinks herself to be. And then question number one, why are all the Hindu gods and goddesses born only in India? Well, again, it's the same thing. You should try to understand this, actually. There are many avatars, they live elsewhere, or many gods or goddesses, they live elsewhere, outside India, in their own planets also. But anyway, God can appear wherever He wants. He doesn't have to do what you think He should do. And then a question from Jiya. Moreover, why do the people outside India don't know any of them? Actually, they do in other names. The Vedic culture was widely spread all over the world until civilization in the form of Christianity came and wiped a lot of it out. Why is Christianity so strong? Well, compared to the Vedic culture, why did they get the strength that they could conquer? Because after all, a lot of Christianity was spread by the sword, not only by Islam. But previously, there was all over the world a Vedic culture and worship of different gods in different names. Just like we have in the Puranas, the Vedas, what you can call the Hindu name is Buddha, not Buddha, but Buddha is the god of war. Yeah, we can call it god of war. Different to Kartikeya. So in the Roman prototype or Roman culture, it was known as Mars. In ancient Greece, it was known as Ares. Or Ares. The god of love, known as Cupid in ancient Rome. That word is still there in English. Eros in ancient Greece, prior to Rome. In the heart of London, Piccadilly Circus, the heart of the British Empire, was erected, and still there, a statue of Eros with his bow and arrow. And the same is originally there in the Vedic culture, Kamadev. Yama, the god of death, in the Vedic culture is Hades, or hell. That word is there for hell also. In Greek, the god of death, Hades. And Pluto, you know these names, Mars and Pluto, from the planets, but they're taken from the name of Roman gods who are actually the same as the Vedic gods, but with somewhat different stories and culture which have gathered around them. Of course, anthropologists might not believe this, but why should we believe the anthropologists? Incidentally, the Norse version, that means coming from the ancient Norse, the Vikings, of the god of death, his name is Hel. Mangal, well-known name in or word in Indian culture up to the present time, is Hermes in Greek, Mercury in Roman culture, Indra, the king of heaven, in Vedic culture is Zeus, the king of the gods, Zeus in Greek culture, and Jupiter in Roman culture. So he's king of the gods, but that doesn't mean the Supreme Lord. He's within the material world also. In Egypt also, So many cultures all over the world. Something like Hinduism was all over the world, but Christianity and Islam made a good job of wiping them out by killing people who didn't want to accept their religions. The question number 2, why do all the Hindu gods and goddesses ride carriers, which are Indian animals? Why are not some animals... The question is not very well put. I'll rephrase it. Why do they not ride animals which don't appear in India, such as kangaroos, giraffe, and so on? Well, some of the animals that... Animal carriers. Actually, these animal carriers of the gods, they're not just ordinary elephants, rats, crows, swans. They're very special beings. Elephant carries Indra, a rat carries Ganesha, a crow carries Shani, swan carries Brahma, peacock carries Kartikeya, Krishna rides on Garuda, the eagle, Vishnu. So these are found outside India anyway. But again, India is very special, and only a few demigods are known. There are millions of demigods. And again, they are intimately connected. See, what's going on in India is a facsimile of the higher planets and ultimately of the spiritual world. It's a reflection of the spiritual world. And then again, question number 3 here, why did all the gods and goddesses take birth only in royal families? Why were none of them born in poor families or in lower castes? Yeah, this is communism, or the idea that the lower castes, they should have their rights and this and that. But actually, birth in a higher caste is due to better karma, generally speaking. And the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas, in which families the Supreme Lord appears, they are the leaders of society. The Brahmanas are the intellectual and religious leaders of society, and the Kshatriyas are the administrative and protective leaders of society. So when the Supreme Lord comes to this world, he doesn't come to make a communist revolution. He comes to lead the people to a better level. So some of his avatars, they take birth in Brahmana families. Well, we have Vamanadev. Actually, he was born in the heavenly planets. Mostly in Kshatriya families, because Paritranaya sadhunam vinashayata dushkritam. They come to protect the righteous and destroy the immoral. So mostly they appear as Kshatriyas, because they have a role to play. They have a certain role to play. It's role-playing. I'll discuss that a little later about Leela. Unless you understand the concept of Leela, that God comes to this world to play as if a human being. But he does so for the benefit of the world. Question number 4. The mythological stories mention details of daily activities of the gods and goddesses, such as... the questions are not very well framed, so I'm just trying to understand what they mean. Such as Parvati bathing with sandal dust. Describes how she made LADDUs for Ganesha, how Ganesha relished the LADDUs, and so on. However, as soon as the script of the scriptures ends, so do the narratives of the activities and of the gods and goddesses. Did all the gods die after that? Where are they now and what are they doing? First of all, they're not mythological stories. Myth in English derives from the word mithya in Sanskrit, which means false or not true. We call them itihasa or Purana, ancient historical accounts of true events. The demigods are still living, and their events are their activities are continuing on their planets, and they're doing the same kind of thing The present yuga is just a blip in time for the demigods, and we're now out of contact with them, for which reason I'll explain a little later. These activities rotate. Krishna is dancing with the gopis. It's not that he just did it when he came. He's doing it now. In another universe within this, within the multiverse, and in the spiritual world. Just to iterate this point, mythology is a very bad word introduced by the English, which the Hindus have adopted, which means it's all untrue, but it's not untrue. In what's in the Itihas, that means Ramayana, Mahabharata, Puranas, is true. It's not untrue. So, question number 5 here. The scriptures tell us stories of gods and goddesses frequently visiting the earth. They would sometimes give boons to somebody and sometimes kill a sinner. What has gone wrong now that they no longer visit the earth? They no longer visit the earth as they used to because it's Kali Yuga and people are sinful. Some of them are even offensive to the gods and write hate texts in the comment sections on the internet against them. So why should they come? They come to reciprocate with people when they're more pious. Piety has gone down a lot. Actually, the gods are present in their deity forms in the temple. But in this blip of time called Kali Yuga, we don't find the demigods coming personally. They used to come especially to the yagyas, to the sacrifices of very pious kings, to accept the offerings, to directly accept the offerings, which are usually carried by Agni Dev, the god of fire, to the demigods in the heavens. But for very pious kings, they would come personally to accept the offerings. But in this Kali Yuga, that kind of yagya is not possible to perform, because to get purity of place, the place has to be pure, and if there's, for instance, cow slaughter going on, the place is not suitable for performing yagyas. It's difficult to get brahmanas who are so pure and perfect that they can absolutely correctly pronounce the mantras. It's hard to get enough ghee of sufficient purity, and in so many ways performing yagyas is not possible in the present age, so the demigods don't come to accept the offerings. The yagya that is possible in this age is Sankirtan yagya, the chanting of the holy names of Krishna. Krishna Varnam Trisha Krishnam Sango Pangastra Parshadam Yagyair Sankirtana Prayar Yajantihi Sumedisaha. In this Kali Yuga, in which people are generally not very intelligent and therefore they don't understand the intricacies of Vedic culture, and they mock it because they're too inane to be able to understand its intricacies. But those who are spiritually intelligent in Kali Yuga, they will worship the avatar of Krishna who appears in this Kali Yuga and chants the name of Krishna and appears with his associates and propagates Sankirtan Yagya, the congregational chanting of the holy name. And this avatar, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is worshipped by Sankirtan, chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Number 6, in the mythology, again a wrongly used word, whenever evil spreads all around, God would take birth in a king's family and grow there for about 30 to 35 years and then kill the evildoer. When God himself has to kill the evil, why does he wait for 30 to 35 years? Well, this is wrong in the case of Rama and Krishna. Rama started killing evildoers in his teens. Krishna started in his infancy and continued doing so throughout almost all the spell of his time on earth. So, getting your facts wrong to start off with. Again, the understanding of Leela, he comes not just to kill the evildoers, vinashayata dushkritam, but more importantly, paritranaya sadhunam. He comes to enjoy interactions, loving interactions with his loving devotees. So he's not only preoccupied with killing. Why doesn't he rather instantly kill them as he killed his own devotees in Uttarakhand? What does this refer to? Floods in Uttarakhand, which killed so many people, many of whom are devotees of gods and demigoddesses, I suppose so. Yeah, well, everything has a purpose. It was noted that the devastating floods in Uttarakhand in northwest India took place when a temple, an ancient temple of Devi, was moved for the sake of making the dam, and then the Lord reciprocated. Sometimes he shows his own devotees, if they don't behave properly toward him, what they should be doing properly. He doesn't completely destroy him. He doesn't completely destroy anyone, but he gives a lesson. And then you could say also, then, if you believe that Islam is the only way and this and that, well then, why are Muslims killing each other? Why doesn't God stop them? Muslims, unfortunately, have become associated with violence, but most killing by Muslims is of Muslims. So if you want to invoke this, I'm not into this. It's not my business to go around pointing fingers at Muslims or anyone else. But if you want to invoke this kind of thing to criticize Hindus, well, have a look in your own mirror. See what's going on. Number 8, if polygamy is inappropriate as per Hinduism, then why did Dasharath, the father of Ram, thank you for informing me of that, as if I didn't know, marry 3 women? Well, actually, polygamy is allowed in Vedic Shastra, and Dasharath, for your information, married not only 3 wives, but more than 300. To give this in brief, the ideal of having 1 wife only was showed by Lord Rama. That is one ideal, which is better for one's own spiritual advancement. Not to be, of course, Lord Rama doesn't have to make spiritual advancement because he is the Supreme Lord, but he's showing the ideal, one kind of ideal for human society. Not to become overly entangled with so much material responsibility so that one can concentrate on spiritual advancement. Another aspect of dharma is to protect women. All women should be married so that they can be protected. So Dasharath showed another ideal by marrying so many women. Dharma is multifaceted. Life is multifaceted. God is not so simplistic that we can understand him just with our supposedly sensible, rational intelligence. Number 9, if Shiva were... But at the same time, if we're actually sensible and rational and try to understand these things in depth, there are answers there. Number 9, if Shiva was able to chop off his son Ganesha's head, what sort of a god does it make him that he was unable to patch the same head back in place? Why should an innocent elephant be killed and its head be placed on Ganesha's body? How did an elephant's head fit on a human body? Again, according to Leela or pastimes, the gods come to this world and appear to be under the laws of this world. As it said, the head of Ganesh, the original head, was completely destroyed. You say an innocent elephant, but actually that was a great demon in the form of an elephant who was killed, and then his head was put on the body of Ganesh, who didn't become a demon by getting the head of an elephant. How did an elephant's head fit on a human body? Human bodies can be much bigger. than the ones that we perceive on this planet. Even the descriptions of Krishna and the Pandavas, their bodily forms at that time, they were much bigger because everything decreases in Kali Yuga. Apart from that, if you want to be sensible and rational, what's considered sensible and rational? Big Bang Theory, that originally there was an infinite mass fitting in infinitesimal space. So if that's taken to be sensible and rational, then why cannot the head of an elephant fit on a human body? There are laws of nature which we're not aware of. Just because you can't understand it, it doesn't seem to you sensible or rational, doesn't mean that it's impossible. There's no reason why there can't be planes of existence with other possibilities. Not that everything has to be like my well, Dr. Frog living in a well, and thinks that all of reality can only be like his well. Question number 10. If non-veg food is prohibited by Hinduism, why did Rama go out to hunt the golden deer? Isn't it wrong to kill a deer? Lord Rama, the Supreme Lord, can do whatever he wants. He gives life to all living beings and he can take it also. He doesn't need a license from anyone to sanction his activities. Now, one thing, if you accept that Ram killed the deer as described in the Ramayana, why not accept the description that he killed Ravana with 10 heads, made a bridge of rocks across the ocean? If you accept this story of Rama killing the deer and you want to criticize it, why do you accept it? Because it's in their Ramayana. Then why not accept all the descriptions in their Ramayana? It's all in the same book. Think about it rationally. Actually, meat eating is allowed in Hinduism, in the Vedic culture, and in Islam, for instance, and Judaism, but under restriction, with the aim to regulate it, with the understanding that it's not very good, but there are some people who will eat meat. It's better to regulate it rather than allow it to go on unlimitedly. Just like in Judaism, you have kosher meat, halal slaughter in Islam. The idea is to regulate it, not that you make a slaughterhouse killing thousands of animals every day and have a rabbi or an imam in the slaughterhouse. It's supposed to be an occasional thing. And I doubt, actually, if you're going to follow the letter of the law exactly as some members of some religions insist on, but they don't follow it exactly when it comes to kosher or halal meat, because it's supposed to be drained of all blood, which is a very cruel way to kill the animal, that you'd bleed them to death. But it's actually impossible, because some blood is going to remain. So if we take that consideration, then no Muslim is properly following. For all their insistence on halal meat, they're all eating haram meat. How about that? 11, if Ram is God. Actually, Ram is God, but they're saying if Ram, again, putting the so-called challenge. How come he didn't know that the nectar pot is hidden in Ravana's tummy? If Ravana's insider did not divulge this secret to Ram, he would have never won the war against Ravana. Is this how you expect God to be? What you expect God to be doesn't mean that he has to dance according to your direction. The actual fact is, kartum akartam anyata karite samartha. He is able to act freely and can do and undo whatever he likes. And in his pastime, certain persons, they take the role of assisting, although actually he can do everything himself. Actually, this story of having the nectar pot in the stomach of Ravana, that's not in Valmiki Ramayana, which is considered the most authorized form. It may be in some other Puranas, but anyway, the general principle is he may appear to act like a human being, because if you're always God, then you can't have that same, if you're always in the mood of being God and knowing everything, actually he does know everything, but you can't have that kind of intimate relationship. This has to be understood, that the platform of God is the platform of love, not just being all-knowing all the time. 12. You believe Krishna is God too, but how does it befit God to peep at bathing gopikas? If a common person does such things in this era, don't we call him a loose character man? How can you call Krishna a god? It's not just a matter of belief. One has to accept the verdict of Shastra. Shastra declares Krishna to be the God, to be the Supreme Lord. This is not sentiment of fanaticism. But you say, how can God see the naked bathing women? But what do you know about God? Every theist will accept that God sees everything. He sees everything everywhere all the time. So do we think that he becomes agitated by seeing naked women? Even to say, how can God do this? It shows a lack of proper understanding of the very meaning of what it means to be God. He can do whatever he likes. He is the actual husband and master of all women. You say that, how can such a person be considered moral? Well, just as in your Islam and Christianity, people also, they don't watch pornography. Now again, the same point I said with Lord Ram. If you accept Krishna's Gopi Leela, which you criticize, because you think it's immoral, as if we have to accept you as the arbiter of morality. Well, how do you know about Krishna's Gopi Leela? Because it's in the Shastra. But that's also described his Giridhar Leela, how he held up a mountain for 7 days and 7 nights on the little finger of his left hand. Why don't you accept that? Why don't you accept that he's the descriptions of him being the Supreme Personality of Godhead? The controller, the maintainer, the creator, the destroyer of all the worlds. It's all in the same scriptures. The acharyas, persons who are tattvavit, the knowers, who have realized the import of the Shastra, the scripture, they describe the gopis as part of Krishna's pleasure potency. Mundane sex, the lust between man and woman in this world, or for that matter between dog and bitch, or boar and sow, it's all lust. It's all contaminated. But pure spiritual sex, of which lust in this material world is a perverse reflection, that is actual love. God is about love and not lust. This requires deep pondering. This jiya has introduced her so-called questions by saying these questions are worth a deep ponder. But who deeply ponders anything? There are great sannyasis who are detached from materialistic enjoyment, particularly from sexual affairs, whose great sannyasis in history, like Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, their philosophical depth is so profound that we who are raised on cartoons and Netflix and Bollywood, we can hardly even begin to fathom what is spiritual sex. All these great acharyas who themselves were completely, we can see from their character, completely detached from any material enjoyment. They worshipped Krishna. They worshipped Krishna's Leela, his pastimes, as being transcendental, on a divine platform way beyond this frog in the well so-called rationality. But persons who are stuck like frogs in a well they cannot even begin to understand this, even if they try to ponder on it. In summary, Krishna's transcendental sexuality is beyond the lust of this world. He comes to this world to show what is actual love, what is sexuality beyond lust. It's very difficult for people who are mired in lust to understand it. That's a fact. But unless Krishna came to show it, there is no possibility that we can go beyond the lust of this world and understand the transcendental platform of pure spiritual love, of which the lust in this world, the sexuality of this world, is a perverse reflection. Our most worshipable Guru Dev, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, often commented upon this accusation that Krishna is very lusty. The following I'm going to read with a slight paraphrasing from an extract from a talk that Srila Prabhupada gave on the 16th of February in 1976 in response to allegations that Krishna is after beautiful women. Srila Prabhupada said, Krishna, he's not after beauty, but beauty is after him. That is Krishna. Not that Krishna is after beauty. The materialistic persons, they think that Krishna was so much fond of beautiful women. No, that is not the fact. Actually, if we take it from the spiritual perspective, he was after the beautiful women for the beauty of their love, but Srila Prabhupada's speaking to address the mundane misconception. So that Krishna was fond of beautiful women, that is not the fact. The beautiful women were after Krishna. That is Krishna. Krishna is so beautiful himself. Kandarpa koti kamaniya vishesha shobham. Kandarpa. Kandarpa means Cupid. We have heard the name of Cupid. Very beautiful, attractive. But he, Krishna, is Kandarpa koti kamaniya vishesha shobham govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Which Srila Prabhupada doesn't translate here, but it's expected that his disciples would understand what he means. It means that he is desirable for many millions of cupids or love gods by his extraordinary, exceptional beauty. He is Govinda who gives pleasure to the senses, not that he's after sense enjoyment. He is the original person, and he is the person who we worship. So continuing what Srila Prabhupada said, Krishna does not want any beauty for his satisfaction. He's self-satisfied. But devotees, beautiful devotees, rich devotees, aristocratic devotees, perfect devotees, they are after him, Krishna. He's self-satisfied. He doesn't require anything. Just like these foolish people read Srimad Bhagavatam, and it is said that Krishna had 16,000 wives or queens, so they think that Krishna is like an ordinary man who keeps more than one wife and is considered to be very lusty. No, that is not the fact. These 16,000 wives, how did they become wives? And the answer is that they petitioned Krishna to accept them as their wives. So that's the end of that little extract, which should put everything into proper perspective. Krishna's beauty is absolute. That means it's undefiled in any way, it's perfect, it's eternal. It's not like a beautiful woman of this world becomes ugly in old age. And that absolute beauty of Krishna is sung in praises by great sages who themselves take birth as cowherd girls in order to enjoy loving exchanges with him. In the Dandakaranya forest, there were many rishis who were attracted in a spiritual way to the beauty of Lord Rama, expressing their desire to relate with him as wives. He told them that they can come when he comes again. When he came as Krishna, they came as gopis and as queens. Sri Krishna's original form, as he exhibits in the forests of Vrindavan, is of a youth appearing like 16 years old. He descended on earth. Avatar means he descended. He came from on high. He is the embodiment of all love. He is all spiritual. He attracts not only women, but men and all living beings, and even those that move and those that don't move. He's all attractive. That he's laughing, loving glances, looks so beautiful, dressed in brilliant yellow cloth, with his garlands. He plays his flute. He sports in the forest of Vrindavan with the cowherd girls, the gopis, who worship him with the divine sentiment of transcendental love. This is all Ananda Chinmaya Rasa. Transcendental, spiritual, blissful exchanges. He is love. He enchants even Narayana. And Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, lives on his chest in the form of the Srivatsa mark, so she can always be near his heart. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa, this is called. Transcendental, spiritual, blissful, loving exchanges. But people who are very proud of being rational and sensible on the mundane platform cannot understand this. It's hard to explain. It's the concept of lila, that God comes to enjoy playful pastimes. And in order to enjoy love and fun, but there are those who say that God creates, He speaks, He's merciful, He hears our prayers, He arranges us to enjoy in heaven, Jannat, or in Arabic, Jannah, and He delights in throwing almost everyone into hell. But apart from all these features, which a person can do, a machine cannot be merciful, or simply a light cannot be merciful. He has all these features of personality, but He's not a person, they say. He has no form and no friends. We who conceive of God in this way, we only allow Him enough personality as serves our purposes. He can talk to us, He's merciful to us, He sends us to Jannat to enjoy virgins, unlimited supply of virgins. That much we accept. And everyone we don't like, He throws them into hell forever. He serves our purposes very nicely, but we don't want Him to be a person any more than that. Therefore, we reject vehemently the contention that God is a person. We would like those who accept God as a person to be thrown in hell to suffer forever due to our conception of God. But actually, we understand that God is the supreme person. We are persons. We do not have features of our consciousness that God does not have. We are not more than Him. If we say we are persons and He's not a person, then we're more than Him. Then there's no meaning to Him being God. But He's a person, and He comes and He enjoys living, playing, dancing, joking with His associates, and even loving affairs. But these are on the completely pure spiritual platform. Personally, I prefer to worship a God who spiritually sports with gopis on the plane of pure love, rather than the concept of God who creates so many humans and then He throws most of them into hell forever. There's something sick, really sick in this whole conception of God. And it, unfortunately, sorry to say, but it makes for a religion in which it's easy to hate, talking about being a religion of peace, but actually a religion of hate. Number 13, supposed question. Why are the perpetrators of rape so high among Hindus? This is not a sensible, rational question. This is slander. If you don't know what slander means, it means false statements that are made to cast others in a bad light, to damage their reputation. Slander means that you are not sensible and rational. Any sensible and rational person would check the facts before making such pejorative statements. Is this what your religion teaches? To slander? You should be ashamed, but you are besharam, shameless. While accusing others of indecency, you are indecent. If you want to convert sensible, rational people to your religion, you have to do better than slander, simply to make false accusations. These people who say things like this, their pleasure is not in God or in love, but in trying to show themselves superior to others. But they're not. They're envious of those who are actually godly. It's unfortunate that Krishna, God, the God of love, Govinda, within their heart, loves them more than they can imagine, and all they want to do is slander and blaspheme him. It's, again, the whole tenor of all these questions. It's sickness in mind. If you can only promote your religion by putting others down, even by making false statements, it's not much of a religion. Now, if you actually want to see the facts, okay. Rape statistics by country. World Population Review, the year 2021. You can look it up on the internet. Now, these statistics are rarely perfect, but they can give a good indication. In this World Population Review, Rape Statistics by Country, 2021, there are totally 119 nations mentioned, and India is in the 95th position, remembering that Hindus mostly populate India. While the frequency of rape in the United States varies from state to state, it averages out to 1 every 1 to 2 minutes. A question was asked in the European Parliament in 2015 regarding the wave of rape cases in Europe, which had ensued side by side with the mass immigration of Muslims. You can try and explain that some other way if you like, but the prisons in Europe have a disproportionately high number of Muslims who are incarcerated on rape or similar sexual abuse charges. So again, it's not my business to put down Islam, but if you want to make false statements that Hindus are such high perpetrators of rape and say that this shows that Christianity or Islam is better, then you should look at the fact. One woman who was raped by a member of the Religion of Peace in the UK, she has estimated that at least 5 lakh kafirs, as they're called, in the UK have been raped by Muslims in the last 40 years. There are Muslim grooming gangs in the UK. Now again, I don't want to put down Islam, but if you want to start making false accusations, you better look at yourself first. This is not slander. These are facts that any sensible, rational person has to accept. There is a problem. Rape is a problem. Even if there's only one rape in the whole of the world in a year, it's a problem. When it's so widespread, it's a much bigger problem. But it's also more of a problem when you pin the blame on one community, saying that it's because, or implying that it's because of their beliefs, and implying that another community is much better when it's patently not. Okay, number 14. It's getting tiresome to deal with all of this, but anyway, we'll plod on. Why do Hindus worship Shiva's penis only? Why not other gods' penises? And why are other parts not worth worshipping? From Bhagavad Gita. Sarvayornishu kauntaya murtaya sambhavanti yaha tasang brahma mahadyonirahang bija pradapita. Lord Krishna says it should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving Father. It is via the godly sexual interaction of Lord Shiva with his wife, Durga, that all living beings are injected into material nature. Krishna says, I do it. In Bhagavad Gita, he says, I do it. It's via the agency of Lord Shiva. So he's the father of us all in that respect. And it's via his linga, Shiva linga, his penis, that we are injected into this nature. So that part in particular is worshipped. Although it's not only that part, but particularly that part. That's the reason. If you're in dirty consciousness, you'll take it in a dirty way. If you're in higher consciousness, you'll understand. Number 15. Hindu temples of Khajuraho. Actually, it's Khajuraho. Hindu temples of Khajuraho's walls are adorned with erotic sculptures. Why is such a place called a holy temple? Commonly asked question, is sex considered a holy activity worth worshipping? It's interesting how out of all the lacks of great temples and architecture and magnificent structures of India's temples, your mind goes to those temples in particular. Sex, if performed in the proper way, as in Bhagavad Gita is stated, dharma viruddho bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshava. It's not a bad thing if it's performed in a religious way. Actually, the whole world worships sex. The erotic sculptures are on the outside, as if to say, you want that? This is outside. You go inside for the higher thing. The whole world is fascinated by sex. Pungsastriya mituni bhavametam tayoraho hridaya grantimahu. Aho pungsastriya mituni bhavametam tayoraho hridaya grantimahu. Ato griha kshetra sutabda vitair janasya mohoya mahammameti. The attraction between male and female is the basic principle of material existence. And when man and woman unite in sex, the bondage of attraction becomes very strong. In this way, one thinks in terms of I, me, and mine, my house, my country, my children, my relatives, my society, my wealth, and in this way one is strongly bound in the consciousness of I, me, and mine. Now, the whole world worships sex, but within the Vedic culture, there are means to channel that and gradually purify it. Even in the temples, it's accepted that these activities are there. It's already purified at the higher level, at the level of Shiva and Parvati. We are not on that level. So there's allowed to be indulged for the sake of producing children and for sexual delight for those who want it. but it's to be done in a regulated way, according to scripture, not wantonly. Even in supposedly Islamic countries, the romantic or sexy movies and porn is very popular. Even people who visit the mosque regularly, many of them, when they're not at the mosque, spend their time. You can see what they really like by what they do in between. Otherwise, why are lusty dances, romantic movies so popular? It's sex. It's not that in Islamic countries everyone's a saint. In Vedic culture, it's recognized this is a human tendency. It should be channeled properly. It should be gradually purified. And when one comes to the high level, he can understand what is the divine sex of Shiva and Durga, and especially of Krishna with Radha. But if you try to criticize that at a low level, then you'll simply be offensive. It's something like criticizing your own parents. Why are you having sex? You're so dirty. Who criticizes their parents like that? Actually, the governments of the world, instead of vying with each other and fighting with each other, they should come together to stop porn. It's a disgrace to humanity. Slavery was stopped, or at least supposed to be stopped. It's understood to be wrong. Largely, it's considered to be wrong throughout the world. And then why not porn? Anyway, that's a side topic. Number 16. Why did Devendra, Indra, why is he still in the chief of the gods post, even though claimed as sex slave and rapist by his own Hindu scriptures? It seems, jiya, that you're simply fixated on sex. Is that all that you can see? You don't see the tremendous theistic tradition? Indra is a great god. He has a great job to do. He gets that post by many pious activities. But his aim in getting that post is to enjoy the post. He's a materially contaminated person. Having got the post, he sometimes misuses it, but he's still considered a great personality. He's not just like some ordinary lusty person. He's a great and powerful personality who protects the worlds. So sometimes he makes a mistake, and that is not covered up. It's given in the scripture to show that even if one is on a higher level of material piety, one can still slip at any time. So one should be careful. Number 17. This is one of the most stupid of so many stupid questions. Number 17. It's natural to preserve the items or belongings of loved ones, but why does no one care to preserve belongings of hundreds of gods like Rama's bow, Bhima's gada, Krishna's flute, not even a single item? Well, within the material world, by the way, things deteriorate. So, even the transcendental items which belong to the Supreme Lord, they act as if under the influence of the material energy. So Krishna's bamboo flute from 5,000 years ago is not going to be preserved. You can see Bhima Pul at Badarik Ashram, the bridge of stone made by Bhima. You can see the bridge built by Ram and monkeys from Setu Banda near Rameshwaram across to Lanka. And you can see the footprint of Krishna in Govardhan. We'll show that and you'll say, oh, I don't believe it. Number 18. If there are more than one God, then it's a stupid question, because there is only one God. Then God one knows the secrets and feelings of God two. If he is unable, then he is not fit for the post of God. If God two cannot be able to control and not stop God one to know about his feelings, then he is not fit for the post of God, vice versa. And this is just based on such a misunderstanding. Just go and study 2 + 2 = 4 and come up. It's like that. You don't know ABC about what you're talking about as far as Vedic culture, cosmology. You don't know anything about it. There is the Supreme Lord and there are gods. Various gods are not omniscient. Only the Supreme Lord is omniscient. So that just cancels the whole question. Apart from that, there is a saying in Sanskrit, Sajjana gunamichanti dosham ichanti pamaraha. Just like honeybees, they like to search out nectar pollen from sweet flowers to make honey. So, noble persons, they look for good qualities. Whereas, dosham ichanti pamaraha, just like nasty flies, they like to buzz around the stool or the drop, the feces. We used to see still the people passing stool in the field, and the flies would come. So people who are like flies looking for the smelly bad feces, they look for faults. What kind of person are you? God is neither Muslim nor Christian or Hindu. He is God. Nor are we to be considered Christian, Muslim, Hindu. These are bodily designations. I say, I am a Hindu, I am a Christian, I am a Muslim. It's connected with the body, but we're all eternal spirit souls. We're part and parcel of the Supreme God. Deep pondering will only take us so far in understanding the inconceivable. Therefore, if we really want to know these topics, we have to approach a guru, a self-realized soul, one who studied the scriptures, in all humility. Simply challenging will get us nowhere. These are sensitive topics. I'm aware that I'm liable to be misquoted, out of context, as is often done by people who organize. I've seen people organize these kind of talks and they take a clip and they take it out of context. Admittedly, some things in Hinduism are stupid and questionable, because not everyone who takes to Hinduism is super brainy or super sincere. I mean, that's true in all religions and indeed pretty much all areas of human endeavor. If you want to promote Islam by saying it's sensible and rational, you should consider that Islam today has a huge problem with insensible, irrational violence, and therefore Islam is widely seen as a problem. However, this insensible, irrational violence is such a problem that even for me to make such remarks, I'm only doing that at personal risk. Still, some things need to be said. You insult and insult and insult, and then if I try to rebut and point out that actually you have some problems also, that becomes the justification to kill you. Remember, this talk was started because someone with the Muslim name Jiya made all these defamatory comments about Hinduism, but the talk was about how, in the name of Islam, a British member of Parliament had been murdered, and just at the same time, so many attacks on Hindus in Bangladesh. So please consider, if you're actually sensible and rational and want to ponder deeply what goes on in the name of your religion, there are very serious problems. Chant the names of God. You can chant according to the Islamic tradition, Christian tradition. You can chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Chant the name of God. We should come together on the platform of chanting the names of God. Please also, if you really want to understand these matters, the tone of questioning is not like that, but if you really want to understand these matters, please read the books of Srila Prabhupada, published by the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, which present the deep Vedic culture and philosophy in a sensible, rational manner in straightforward English that is easily understandable by people who are somewhat sensible and rational and open-minded and wanting to expand their understanding of God and make it deeper. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Dante nitaya churnakang padayo nipatya kritva chakar kushatameta ravimi he sadhava sakala eva vihaya durat gauranga chandra charne kurutanu raga. Parivadatu jano yata tatava nanumukaro navayang vicharayamaha. Hari rasamadira madati mata bhuvi vilutama nartama nirvishama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.